All right, well, let me throw that out. The puppets look pretty simple. Why not use something more finished?
Well, one, the puppets are reflecting my capability as an artist, which is very simple. But in
Hmm.
a way, that's a good thing because if I were to make a really beautiful, highly polished, artistic puppet, you know, as someone who is very gifted in the arts, that might intimidate someone not to attempt it themselves
Right.
because they would not want to try to emulate something so finished. When you realize that you can just do the best you can to convey the idea, and that's good enough, and whatever your particular way is has something to say, it opens it up to everyone, whether you're artistically challenged or not. You can still create a puppet that can convey a message, that can have humor and expression and cause feeling. And you can do that no matter what your ability level is.
It's really not how perfect the puppet looks. It's kind of the connection that it makes with the kids.
Right. It's the human connection that the puppet can interact with. If it can make a human connection, even though it's a puppet. And that's what's important, not whether it's, made to scale or artistically perfect and finished. It's more how it evokes an emotion, and then the emotion will evoke a memory, and the memory will invoke retention, and you have learning.
You've worked with puppets like this in the past in the classroom. Can
Yes,
you talk a little bit about that experience?
it was great. It was great. I first learned to use paper puppets when I took Puppetools. Before that, I still used puppets, but I would buy the puppets, finished puppets. And to use paper puppets in the classroom was a new idea to me. And once I started using it, it was wonderful. You could incorporate them in any language, any lesson. You can use them actually in any academic area that you want to tap. I used it in punctuation. I had an exclamation point puppet. I had a period puppet and a question mark puppet who would always ask questions, of course. And of course, the exclamation puppet would always be excited about everything. And it was a great way to convey how to use punctuation. I used it in science with the stomach and the lungs and the heart and a flower puppet. You could use it teaching about animals. And it's something that is so user friendly for children, and I think for adults too, if they let themselves go a bit. It's so user friendly. The child can then take over, make puppets that they like. It's just a wonderful way to link learning with humor and emotion. And then, of course, you retain more.
Did using paper actually sort of open up the field or for you in terms of the variety of things that you could bring into the classroom and into your hand?
Definitely, because there are limitations with, store-bought puppets, but you have no limitations when you're using paper. It could be anything your imagination or the children's imagination can come up with. So you're more free. And, I still use the other puppets too in their place, but this just expanded it. It just, it gave a whole new meaning to it. It's a whole different venue for it.
It's interesting that you don't use a script in this format. What is that like for you? A lot of people might want a script, follow a script
Yeah.
pretty closely with this.
When you're with the children, it wouldn't be good to have a script because you have to respond to their interaction. You want to be open. You don't want to have a set thing. This is what I'm going to do to them, You want to open it up to them and see how they respond and then try to respond back in kind. And you can actually see where they want you to go and where it will take you. It's not a one person thing. It's interactive, and that's what makes it so nice.
This format for an interview, it kind of allows the kids using the puppet and those asking the puppet questions to articulate the knowledge that they have gained either through reading or through a lesson, but the communication is playful. Um, How does this compare with the usual way of communication in the classroom?
Well, I think every classroom might have its own means of communication, um, depending on the philosophy of the school at the time and the teacher's philosophy and how free the teacher is allowed to be. There's a lot of limitations now with the testing programs going on.
Mhm.
Teachers have to, you know, kind of follow the rules, and so that might cause some limitations in learning. I think they're finding that now, and they're trying to somehow keep a happy medium between the testing and exploration and learning. The scary thing is it's filtering down very young. And I think you really have to be careful when you get to kids who are really young because their learning, I don't believe, can be measured in the same fashion as older children. Sometimes what a child won't say on their own, they will say through a puppet. And sometimes, in a way, they won't respond to the teacher, they'll respond to the puppet. And even when you get the children who are more savvy, and they would say to me, that's just a puppet, I would cover the puppet's ears and say, you know that, and I know that, but the puppet doesn't know that, so shh. And they would go right along with it, and they would use their imagination and suspend their disbelief. And I didn't have to convince them that they were wrong because they weren't. It is a puppet. But we were still able to use that. And they were able to go into a land of imagination and fantasy and fun and emotion. And that just makes things very, very memorable. I even had a toilet training puppet.
How
Uh,
did that work?
he was toilet bowl shaped, and his lid was, his mouth. Yeah. And he worked actually very well, and he helped many children, conquer their trepidation about using the toilet. So you can use these puppets any way. You're only limited by your imagination, and that means you're not limited at all.
Tell us a little bit about your teaching background. Obviously, you're working with.
Well, I mostly worked with primary age children, anywhere from kindergarten to second grade, and with handicapping conditions. Some quite severe handicapping conditions, all the way to just learning disabilities when I first began. But as I went on in my career, I worked with um, children with greater and greater learning challenges and handicapping conditions. And no matter what the level, using the puppets was very helpful. I also, when I was home on my child rearing leave, did work with high school students. So, and I have taught many, many years ago. I did teach dance, modern dance in a college setting. So, I have worked with different age groups, but
Mhm.
mainly my experience is with primary.
I wanted to ask you whether you had actually used any of the puppets with the older kids.
I don't think I ever had an opportunity to use them with older kids, but I would certainly do it if I had the opportunity. I've seen examples of that in some of the Puppetools things where, with atoms they used, and I watched some of the videos, and they just seem to be learning the information and having such an amazing time. I don't think it's something they'll ever forget. I think any age, because it just is a wonderful way to combine imagination, factual learning, emotion, fun, yeah, everything that makes something a memorable experience.